What's going on, everyone? My name's Jake and I like to talk about tunes, and today I have a question. What does punk, grime, reggae and dub have in common? The answer? The Bobs are right in the middle of it. Vylan are a two-piece punk fusion band from London who formed back in 2017 and have really rose to prominence recently due to their fusions of genres in their sound, their politically charged lyrics and their don't give a fuck attitude. So who are they, how did they come to be, and why are they, in my opinion, the most important punk band today? These are all the questions I'm going to try and answer today as we take a look at the career of Bob Vylan. First meeting in 2017, vocalist and guitarist Bobby Vylan met drummer Bobby Vylan, this one's with a Y, this one's with an IE, and apparently 2 weeks later they played their very first show. Later on in that year they released their very first project, Vylan, and the band's history has been littered with the DIY ethos. They used to book their own shows, they used to deliver the physical media to record shops, and do everything by themselves. Drive themselves to gigs, take themselves back from gigs, set up all the gear, do everything DIY. Collectively known as the Bobs, the men go under stage names to protect their anonymity and the anonymity of their families, with their lyrics dealing with things like police violence, racial injustices, gentrification, income inequality, state violence, effects of colonialism on the modern world, toxic masculinity, access to healthy food, fatherhood, and much, much more. Their lyrics and themes pull no punches and really give a good insight into the way that these men were raised and the environment that they were raised in. On top of that, fatherhood, as previously mentioned, is one of the most important themes throughout their music, with Bobby with a Y, his daughter, gave the name to their debut album. She has a feature on that album and is the cover of one of their singles, Dream Big. The occurring theme throughout every release is the struggles and the pressures of a black man growing up in the modern age with all of these injustices happening in the world. Musically, the band blends hip-hop and grime with punk and indie rock to create a really cohesive and unique sound. These are all the sort of genres of music that Bobby Vylan was listening to growing up, and when he became a musician, he wanted to create a genre that spoke to him and spoke to who he was as a kid. Instead of having to find it in all these different places, he created that band that was lacking in his youth. Also, speaking of Bobby Vylan with a Y, the band also incorporates a lot of sound and influence from Jamaican genres like reggae, ska, dancehall and dub throughout their music as an homage to Bobby's Jamaican heritage. From the genesis of the band, it was clear that these guys were on a completely different path from other people in either genre, and ever since then they have continued to prove themselves right every time they step up to the plate. After the band formed in May of 2017, that November they released Vylan. It's a 5-track, but really only a 3-track EP, as our two sort of ambient instrumental tracks. It was a very mixed bag. They had songs that sounded like this. Running round there, running round the streets again. And songs that sounded like this. You're living on your own. You think you're free to do whatever you want. With the other track on the EP, Dying Hell, being a sort of weird, dark, grungy, ambient hip-hop track that sounded like this. Whilst the EP Vylan is a far cry from what the band would eventually become, it's very clear to see the influences were there and the groundwork was being laid for what they would eventually become. 4 months later then, in March of 2018, they released the Lunch EP. Lunch again is kind of more hip-hop focused, but with some more elements of punk and sort of some metal influences in there. It's a little bit dirtier, a little bit murkier, still definitely hip-hop driven, but you can see what they're going for. Lunch was then followed up by It Ain't Safe, a punk song about gentrification with homages to Skepta that sounds like this. It ain't safe on the block, we chasing yuppies off, it ain't safe on the block.
We got Skepta on this one, trust me.
And that to me is when you can really see where they're going with this. It's still very much a punk song first, and they haven't really quite figured out the blend of it yet, but the Skepta homages were there, and you knew that something was coming. The band released one more single then in 2018 before the release of their second EP, Dread, in early 2019. Now, Dread is definitely a very good EP, but to me, once again, it straddles the line between both. You have your punk half of it and your hip-hop half of it, and then you have the sort of middle songs that are sort of ambient, dark, weird hip-hop songs. When you begin this band's catalogue from the beginning, you can definitely hear their confidence growing, but on Dread, it still doesn't feel like they're quite confident enough to truly mix each of the styles together just yet, but it was definitely getting closer. It's definitely an EP worth checking out. There are songs on there like Grime Music Made Me Do It. The aforementioned It Ain't Safe and Run Up. Run up in the set, we killing everything dead, yeah. Run up in the set, we killing everything dead, yeah. Definitely a really good EP, definitely underrated and definitely worth your time. However, the best was yet to come for the band as we begin the march towards their first album. Between the release of Dread in March 2019 and the release of their debut album We Live Here in February 2021, the band first released the song Lynch Your Leaders. Now, Lynch Your Leaders is a split with itself. There's a hip-hop version that sounds like this.
Down, down, tear that building to the ground. That house of serpents harbours murderers. Bet that martyr's looking down.
And then an outright punk version that sounds like this.
Down, down, burn that building to the ground. Your place of worship harbours murderers. Bet that martyr's looking down.
Before truly marching towards the record, the band also released a split with Young Magic. They remixed a couple songs for Enter Shikari and The Skint, and were featured on a song with another one of punk's genre-bending icons at the moment, Strange Bones. So on the release of this LP, that's where I became familiar with the band. I was on, I think, Facebook. I was in like a Facebook group, like a new punk Facebook group. Good place for like finding new music and stuff, especially over COVID when everyone was, making more music. People who really wanted to get into music were making it. And in this new punk group, sort of like, this is, check these bands out, someone put in the title track, We Live Here, and I remember seeing like angry reacts and haha reacts and stuff, and then I saw the comments and it was people like, I'm not racist, but this isn't punk. Things that people who are definitely not racist have to clarify. And it divided opinion in that group massively. People saying this is rap, this isn't punk. Other people being like, if you argue that a punk song isn't punk, then it's the most punk thing it could be. I definitely fall on that side. That's when I found it. The controversial and I guess pretty jarring lyrics are what stood out to me upon my first listen, but I couldn't stop going back. This song is amazing. Like I said, this is where I discovered this band, this song. And it's, what an entryway into this band. It sounds like this.
Mum don't look like me, but thank God she still loved me. Neighbours called me nigger, told me go back to my own country. Said since we arrived, this place has got so ugly, but this is my fucking country, and it's never been fucking lovely. We live in a pyramid, we live here.
As previously mentioned, I love when black artists get hit with the this isn't real rock debate, whether it's Jason Allen Butler talking about how rock music is black music and people getting upset over that, even though it is, or what was happening in this Facebook group with Bob Vylan. Whenever I see that, I'm inclined to check these artists out if I don't know them already. And speaking of Jason Allen Butler, he was also featured on this record on the song Pulled Pork. It's a song about police brutality. It goes pretty hard. It's a fucking banger. It goes like this.
Black is beautiful, and we some pretty motherfuckers. Yeah. What's wrong with a little bit of weed, and if the whole fucking block decides to get it from me?
Once I saw that they had a co-sign of Jason Allen Butler, who is one of my favourite artists of all time, if you know me, you'll know that, I knew I had one of my new favourite bands here. As far as first albums go, you'd be hard-pressed to find an album as self-assured as We Live Here right out the gate. I don't think they were at their peak yet. I still don't think they had truly found the way to fuse grime and punk just yet. This was still a lot of, these are punk songs, these are hip hop songs, these are kind of in the middle but a little bit all over the shop. It's a really, really good album though, don't let that dissuade you from it at all. I do think obviously the best was yet to come, and that was going to be made clear very, very soon. So 6 months after the release of We Live Here, the band released what would go on to be the first single for their second album, and Pretty Songs. Pretty Songs is a sort of tongue-in-cheek look at when all of the protests in Black Lives Matter were happening and people saying we need to be understanding of people instead of, just going out and punching a racist in the mouth. It's a joke about those people that say we can't be violent, we let them win, when in reality you just need to kick a racist in the head every now and then. Then in November of 2021 we got the release of GDP and the announcement of their second album, Bob Vylan Presents The Price of Life, and to me GDP is where they cracked it. GDP is the song where it wasn't punk first, it wasn't grime first, it was both. It was just this seamless cohesion of these two genres that on paper have nothing to do with each other, and these two guys just made a perfect song. It's amazing.
Yeah. The BBC are talking about the GDP. Fuck it, miss me with that mess.
In the coming months, the band then released Health is Wealth. It's one of the most chill songs they've ever released. It's a sort of, I don't know, like, you can hear the Jamaican influence in it. It's just a straight rap song. It's very laid back, it's very easy listening. It's about veganism and how that is the ultimate form of rebellion against a system that is trying to oppress them. It's good, it's fun. I've heard a lot of people being like, oh, it's preachy. Like, shut up, man, it's fun. And then the album released on the 22nd of April 2022. For me, the biggest and best track on this record is what they released just with the album, and that's the song Wicked and Bad. that once again, like GDP, combines the elements of grime and punk, but also then throws in the dancehall and Jamaican influence as well. So that's another strand to pull in and weave this unbelievable song. And it's amazing. They flew out to Jamaica to film the video. I think Bobby Vylan said they're the first punk band to film a video in Jamaica, like to come to Jamaica to film a punk band. You could tell it was a really special moment for the band, and listen to that song. It's a very, very special song.
Wicked and bad, man move. Moving wicked and bad, put the money in the bag. Moving wicked and bad, put the money in the bag.
This record made history with it being the first album that was, let me make sure I get all this right, written, produced, recorded, mixed, mastered, and released by the band to hit the UK Top 20. This was released on their own record label, Ghost Theatre. They did everything themselves. I think there was only 2 other people with production credits on the entire record, apart from the Bobs, and this album went to number 18 on the UK charts. Off the back of that then, this album also won Album of the Year at the Kerrang Awards, and Bob Vylan won the inaugural Best Alternative Act Mobo Award, beating out acts like Loathe, Nova Twins and Skunk Anansie. Price of Life really helped put Bob Vylan on the map and cemented them in a really cool place to be. They were valid in the hip hop and grime scene, and they were valid in the punk scene, and they were creating a bit of a bridge between both scenes. I've seen a few bands now doing their own spin on what Bob Vylan does, and it's now officially the Bob Vylan sound. As far as I'm concerned, right now, that is the Bob Vylan sound. So with the band with a foothold in both scenes and really, really making their mark on both ends of the spectrum, we all waited to see what would come next. Not want to rest on our laurels though, the Bobs very soon released The Delicate Nature, featuring Laurie Vincent of Soft Play, and soon after that, Dream Big. We didn't know at the time, but Dream Big would actually be the lead single for the third album, Humble as the Sun. Here it is here. It's signed, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's a wonderful album. Buy vinyl, buy physical, support artists, buy t-shirts, buy merch, don't just stream, buy. Dream Big is a song that draws on a lot more sort of indie and radio rock elements. It feels a lot softer than quite a lot of the songs on The Price of Life, but definitely still has that Bob Vylan edge, so it doesn't ever feel like it's not a Bob Vylan song.
Chat to me about the rising of the working class. It's long overdue, I know, but we're too busy working hard. Dream big, kid, dream big.
Dream Big was followed up then by He's a Man. It's a song I wasn't overly massive on at the time, but over the months I have definitely softened on, and I am a big fan of now.
Yeah, he's a man. He's a proper manly man. You little boys just really wouldn't understand.
And this year, 2024, began with the release of 2 songs before the record, the unbelievable Hunger Games.
Alright. What will you win yourself tonight? Spin the wheel for the chance of a hot meal.
And also unbelievable Makes Me Violent. To me, Humble as the Sun is the most musically complete work of music that the boys have ever released. Humble as the Sun, the title track, opens the album. It is a sort of slow, piano-driven, introspective look at life and art and everything. And it's a song that most other bands probably couldn't get away with. Even though it's slow and it's soulful and it doesn't sound like anything else on the record, it never loses the Bob Vylan edge. It never stops feeling like a Bob Vylan song. And it's a song that a lot lesser bands would get branded sellouts for putting at the start of their record, but not Bob Vylan. Couldn't be Bob Vylan.
It's easy to say I love you when you hate yourself. Face yourself, born of a loving woman, but I had to make myself.
On tracks like Rain and Ring the Alarm, we hear how the band have really, really progressed in a way where they can truly blend the influences of dance music and punk and grime and hip hop and dancehall and ska and dub and all of these different things, and it's effortless now. Like I said, I've heard bands trying this thing and I hear them and they're good, but they're not Bob Vylan. They have mastered this. This is Bob Vylan. Like, listen to Rain. This sounds like nothing else that anyone is making in the world right now. And if they are, they've not been making it as long as Bob Vylan have.
Watch me rain. Watch me rain. Watch me rain.
It's a sound entirely unique to the band and entirely unique to this record that it's now done with so much confidence and just, I don't really know what more to say. It's just so confident, so complete, and so Bob Vylan. The best song on that record for me though is the song Get Yourself a Gun. That is probably the best song the band have ever written, and you know, over the next few years we'll just continue to grow for this band.
It's cold out here and the game's being played ain't fun. Landlord just raised your rent, better get yourself a
It's cold out here, and the games being played ain't fun. Landlord, just raise your rent, but get yourself a gun.
So now, with all that out of the way, why do I think they are the most important punk band in the world right now? First of all, we've got to talk about the music. Their willingness to take genres that on the surface have very little to do with each other, find that common ground with that being them, and find a way to make it authentic and not feel like, oh, we want to make punk but more people like grime, let's do this. This feels authentic. This is them. The fact that they were willing to take these big swings and the fact these big swings have paid off is unbelievable. The spirit of punk is deep in the DNA of every single Bob Vylan song. And that's because at the end of the day, the spirit of punk is telling everyone else to fuck off because you know you can do it yourself. You know you can do it and you're going to do it. And the fact that all these old punks are saying this isn't real punk and telling Bob Vylan to fuck off when they are making the most exciting punk music in years, that also goes to show that they're musically, they are the most punk band in the world right now. As far as I'm concerned, as soon as punk gets gatekept by older punks, that current version of punk becomes the most punk thing in the world. Combine that with cosigns from major artists all across the musical spectrum, put that with the tours they've been on with the likes of The Offspring and Biffy Clyro, the fact they have a Mobo Award, an unsigned band won the inaugural Alternative Music Mobo Award, is nuts. Their legacy is already cemented with the fact they won the first ever Best Alternative Act Mobo Award. That's it, they could call it quits tomorrow and already be one of the best bands of all time, in my opinion. This band haven't just opened the doors, they have kicked them off the fucking hinges and have been doing that for years to get people into genres of music they wouldn't usually like. There are people who would listen to a lot of grime who are maybe now discovering punk and heavy music, and people who would listen to a lot of rock and punk who would never listen to a lot of rap are now being brought in here and widening the palates of kids all over the country, and that is incredible. When you listen to more music and you discover more music and your palate widens musically, that's one of the best fucking things in the world. I know from experience, as someone who used to be like, oh, I don't want to listen to that, that's on the radio, to having a signed Carly Rae Jepsen print right behind my monitor over here, the second you give up the, oh, I would never listen to that, and actively explore is one of the best things you can do. And Bob Vylan are helping that massively. On top of that, with the state of the world politically and all the racism and inequality and everything we see, the world burning in front of our eyes and everyone setting fires every single day, the fact that a band are so willing and open to talk about these things and break these things down, talk about their experiences with police and crime and drugs and addiction and all of these things is incredible. And it's inspiring, and it creates some of the most raw and authentic music currently being produced. So I feel like I've answered all the questions why I think this band is the most important punk band in the world, but feel free in the comments to let me know that I'm wrong and that they're not real punk and that you're not a racist, but, and all of those other, that's bad. Not everyone who doesn't like Bob Vylan's racist. I mean, I'm not. No, we're not going over that can of worms. But that's it for now. Like I said, with all those points, I think I've got across why I believe this band to be the most important punk band in the world. But if you don't think they are, let me know in the comments who you think is. Let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know what you think of Bob Vylan. If this is the first time hearing about them, go and stream all their things. And not only go and stream all their things, buy, purchase, buy vinyl. This is signed. Go to your local record store, pick some vinyl up, go see bands on tour, do all that. Especially independent bands. Support independent music. This is a rant about support music. It's not about Bob Vylan anymore. I'm rambling now. Don't have an outro for this channel. Yeah. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Give it a like. Share it about. Listen to punk music. Listen to Bob Vylan. And I'll be back soon for more videos here on Jake Talks Tunes.